Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy Beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke the Human. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. As per usual, before we get into today's topic, all the way from the 90s, I want to do a bit of housekeeping because I like to keep my house nice and clean. So, 3 things you can do for me right at the beginning of the episode. Number 1, make sure that you follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod. Number 2, if you're listening on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you're listening to this podcast on Spotify on your mobile phone, make sure you leave a star rating. If you can do all 3 of those things for me at the very beginning of the episode, I will be eternally grateful. So today's topic, we're going to be looking at Porco Rosso from 1992. I have no idea if I'm saying that correctly, but we're going to go with it anyway. This is a continuation of my Studio Ghibli journey so far. So far, I have covered Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, which is honestly, possibly, and most likely one of my favourites of all time so far. That might be beaten today with Porco Rosso, but we will see. Then I did Laputa Castle in the Sky, or as it's known here in the West, Castle in the Sky. Then I looked at the tragic movie of Grave of the Fireflies that still hurts me inside, still haunts me, but it's absolutely beautiful movie, just really, really heartfelt and difficult to watch. My Neighbor Totoro was another one that I've done. I've done Kiki's Delivery Service, and most recently, I did Only Yesterday. So this is the 7th movie, all the way from 1992. I am incredibly excited to be reviewing this movie. But before we get into my thoughts and feelings, let's talk about the movie synopsis. So, in Italy, in the 1930s, sky pirates in biplanes terrorize wealthy cruise ships as they sail the Adriatic Sea. The only pilot brave enough to stop the scourge is the mysterious Porco Rosso, a former World War I flying ace who was somehow turned into a pig during the war. As he prepares to battle the pirates' crew's American ace, Porco Rosso enlists the help of a spunky girl mechanic, Fio Piccolo, and his longtime friend, Madame Gina. That is the synopsis of this absolutely wonderful movie. So, to be honest with you all, my memories of this, I've only ever seen it in parts. I think I've told this story before, but this is the beginning of my interest of wanting to watch Studio Ghibli movies. This is sort of the movie that enthralled me. It's the film that was like, when I watched it, I was like, I need more of that. I need to see more movies from this studio because I was just floored. I just fell in love. And the reason I say I've only seen parts is because I remember, I can't remember when, but this was like years and years ago when I was very, very young. There's a channel here in the UK called Film 4. And it like the name suggests, it's a channel where all day, every day, they show films. Early in the morning, they mostly show classic movies, black and white, things like that. But as you go through the day, they start to go sort of more modern and into colour. And they always show Studio Ghibli movies on there. It's quite rare, but they usually the only channel I know of that shows it regularly than most channels here in the UK. And I remember just flicking through, going through the channels, looking for something to watch. And I remember landing on Porco Rosso, and it was halfway through. I had known it was going on. I've never seen it before, but it was animated, and I was only young, so I thought, you know what, leave it on. And yeah, I was just amazed. It was beautiful. It was gorgeous. It was interesting. Like, you had a pilot that was a pig, and I thought that was strange and fascinating. And it was just one of these things that, you know, you see it at such a young age, and you're so impressionable that you're just like, I'm in love. You just fall in love so much, and yeah, I just love it. I do. So I've been excited to watch this movie for so long because it's the movie that started it all for me. Is what put me on this journey of wanting to look at them, never getting around to them till quite recently, and I'm glad that I'm finally gotten to this film. And who knows, this might be my absolute favourite. It might beat Nausicaa Valley of the Wind. Who knows? Still, of all of the one that I've watched, they've all been incredible. They've all been magical and beautiful and heartbreaking, all in their own but Nausicaa for me is still the best I've seen. So who knows? This might beat it. We will see. So that is sort of my memories of it. As for the cast or the English voice cast, so I didn't know that this actor was in it. And as I was doing my research, get my notes ready to do this introduction, I saw that this actor was doing the voice of Porco Rosso, the main character, and it's like you've seen the meme where you've got Fry from Futurama where he's like, "Shut up and take my money," or you've seen the other meme where you get that guy with a credit card and he's just like waving it at the screen of like, just take it, like I just want to watch it, that sort of thing. As soon as I saw this actor, I was like, "That's it, I'm sold. Don't care." So Michael Keaton. I love this man. I'm a huge fan of Michael Keaton. He's one of them actors that no matter what he's in, no matter what he's doing, if he's in it for the whole film or if he's in it for just a bit, I'll watch it. To be honest, coincidentally, I woke up this morning and I put the TV on and it was on Channel 4 and it was Frasier. I'll be honest, I don't watch Frasier. I've never really been a fan of it. It was just on. But as soon as I clicked it on, who shows up on the screen? Michael Keaton playing a con man. And again, no interest in Frasier, but because he was on the screen, I sat and watched the whole episode because he was on it. And it was great and it was hilarious and I loved it. And again, that's just the power that this guy has, that when he's on screen, you just watch. You're like, oh, I've got Michael Keaton's on screen. So yeah, Michael Keaton, it plays Porco Rosso. That's got me more excited than anything now. So I can't wait to see his sort of rendition of this character. I never knew when I was younger that it was him, but to know he's in it, I'm sold. Then we've got Carrie Elwes. I feel like I always butcher his name. He was in what's that film called now? What's that one that he's mostly known for? So what's that? Bride, Saint Bride. Anyway, he's been in a lot of movies, but I always mess up his name. But he's in this. He plays Donald Curtis. Kimberly Williams Paisley as Fio Piccolo. Suzanne Egan as Gina. David Ogden Stairs as Grandpa Piccolo. Brad Garrett as Mama Audio Boss. And then you have Bill Fababaki. Kevin Michael Richardson and Frank Welker as the Mama Attio gang. That is your cast. But yeah, so Michael Keaton was the one that really sold it for me. And when I saw it, I was just like, yeah, that's it. I want to see more of this man. He's incredible, and I love him. So that got me really excited. As for the production, so this one's a bit of a strange one, but we're gonna try our best. So, as for the production, it's quite short. We're going to start talking about something different. I decided to do something a bit different. So usually we talk about the production and then we talk about other things. But there's not a lot in terms of production I could find. So you got production and then I'm going to split it into other things. But we'll get there when we get there. So the film was originally planned as a short in-flight film for Japanese airline based on Hayao Miyazaki's manga, The Age of the Flying Boat, but grew into a feature-length film. The outbreak of the war in Yugoslavia cast a shadow over production and prompted a more serious tone for the film, which had been set in Dalmatia. The airline remained a major investor in the film and showed it as an in-flight film well before its theatrical release. Due to this, the opening text introducing the film appears simultaneously in Japanese, Italian, Korean, English, Chinese, Spanish, Russian, French, and German. Telecom Animation Film Co. Limited helped animate the film. As with Miyazaki's other films, Joe Hisaishi composed the soundtrack. For the soundtrack, Tokyo Kato performs The Times of Cherries, as well as an original song, Once in a While, Talk of the Old Days. So that's what I could find on the production. But what I found was quite interesting was the history and the politics and the sort of the geography and all. So Marco is an Italian hero from the First World War and is shown flying against Austro-Hungarian fighter planes in the flashback sequence. The story is set in northern Italy, including Milan, and the Italian and Croatian Adriatic Sea, east coast. Some locations resemble certain islands of the Italian lakes. The concealed beach Porco uses as a hideout bears a strong resemblance to Stilvia Beach on the southern side of the Croatian islands of Vis. Miyazaki shed light on the political context of the making of the film in an interview with Empire. He reflects that the conflicts that broke out during the film's production, such as those in Dubrovnik and elsewhere, made Porco Rosso a much more complicated and difficult film. Evident historical and political realisms aside, at least one scholar has argued that the film's more overt historical references can be understood as representative of Waikon Yosali, a Japanese spirit, Western learning, a tendency since the Meiji period for Japanese artists to paint Europe as spectacular while simultaneously maintaining the distance necessary to preserve a distinct sense of Japanese identity. In Porco Rosso, states academic Chris Wood, Europe is tamed, rendered as a charming sight of pleasurable consumption, made distant and viewed through a tourist gaze. So that's sort of the history, geography, and politics. This bit I liked as well. So this is a homage to early aviation. And Miyazaki is a big lover of planes and aviation, and so am I as well. So the fictional Piccolo aircraft company depicted in the film is based on the Italian aircraft manufacturers Caproni and Piaggio. The jet shown in the last scene is very similar in concept to the Capraro C-22J, an aircraft designed by Carlo Ferrarian, a designer for Corrino, whose name is notably used in the film for Marco's Air Force pilot friend. The jet amphibian also as a V-tail, slightly reminiscent of the Magister jet trainer, the Salvino Machini S.55, Fiat CR20, and Machini M39 are featured in the movie. Porco's Air Force friend Ferrarian was inspired by the Italian Air Force pilot Ottorio Ferrarian, who flew with an Asterio SVA-9 from Rome to Tokyo in 1920. Additionally, the Capronio CA-309 light reconnaissance aircraft, known as the Ghibli, was the namesake for Miyazaki's and Takahata's animation studio. So there's a bit of trivia for you there. You can go on ages talking about the aircrafts, but I won't, because we'll be here all day. But yeah, so that is all she wrote, really, in terms of the introduction. I haven't got much to say. I'm just really, really excited for this film. I do apologize to anybody, by the way, if I mess up any of the punctuations of any of the Japanese names or any of the Italian words. I've said it many, many times, but being dyslexic really kicks you in the bum when you're doing a movie podcast, because when you're trying to say people's names, no matter how many times you rehearse them in your head, which I do, I tend to go over a lot of this stuff multiple times just to make sure I get it. It never plans out well when I'm recording, and how many times I have to edit around myself, it's a nightmare. So I do apologize there. I always find it quite interesting though with these movies. Before we move on to the review, I just want to mention I always struggle with the sort of Japanese names at first, but once I hear them being said in the film, I can say them easily and clearly with no issue afterwards. I find it very, very strange. I feel like it's just the way my brain works. If I can hear the word or name being said out loud, then I can repeat it easily without any sort of delay or struggle, really. So we'll see. My pronunciations of the characters' names will probably improve in the review. We will see. But yeah, so that's all she wrote. That's all I have to say. Off to the movie, shall we? Allons-y. Well. Studio Ghibli, they've done it again. Those crazy son FUBs have done it. I don't know how. Well, I do. They're made out of magic. It's some sort of witchcraft, but they've done it again. They have created another masterpiece, an absolutely beautiful and gorgeous story and world and characters, and everything about it is just Cheg Magnifique, you know. I just fall in love. The hours flew by, the minutes, everything about it. I was just lost in this film, and I can understand now, looking back onto when I first watched this movie. Granted, I only ever saw the ending. I never saw the actual beginning of it. But I can see now as to why it enraptured me, why it pulled me in, why it started this infatuation I had, this interest of wanting to watch Ghibli movies, because everything about it, it's just an adventure. It's got comedy, it's got, moments of adult sort of themes. But what I mean by that is in terms of honor, in terms of not being a pig, about fascism, and about what doing the right and wrong, and war and all that kind of stuff. There's so many complexities, like everything. Like, you get this with all Studio Ghibli movies. Every single facet of a Ghibli movie, it's like a slice of cake or an onion. Like, every time you peel one side of away, you could just like take that whole one side and do a whole 10-episode podcast on just the political side of it, or the environmental side of it, or the romance, or the characters and stuff like that. Like, everything is so layered and so complex that you could just spend ages watching these movies and not see everything, because there is so much detail in every single frame. And I feel like you just don't get that much anymore in storytelling. You don't get that much in animated, because I've said this many times before, but going away from hand-drawn animation was a big mistake, I believe, in terms of any sort of animation company. I understand what they did, because again, it's easier and cheaper to do it all on the computer, and obviously technology was more available. I get it. And again, some incredibly beautiful movies have been made with that sort of animation, but I still feel, and I'm sure I'm going to stand on this hill until the day I die, but I still feel that a movie that is drawn by hand, and this is why Aardman is so popular and so widely loved, because they do all their sort of all their films are stop motion. It has to be have those actual physical hand on the characters, moving them inch by inch, frame by frame. And what makes those movies so good is that if you look close enough on the characters, you can see individual thumbprints and fingerprints where the people have actually slightly moved the characters here and there. It just adds another sort of layer and beauty to the craft, really. And that's the same here, is the fact of there's so much detail, because of somebody's actually spent the time of drawing each individual frame, individual characters, and that you get more emotion, you get more understanding, you just get more. And I feel like that just sucks you in ever more into the story, into the character, into the world. So obviously, first impressions, I'm blown away, and I can understand now completely why this movie drew me in, and why I had that fascination as a young lad of like, I need to watch more of these movies. And I'm glad I've waited now till I'm an adult to watch them, because as I found going back and watching from the beginning, and if you've been following this journey with me, you've probably noticed that now that I'm an adult, now that I've lived a good few years, and I've read a lot of books, and I've traveled and stuff like that, I can emphasize and understand certain key moments and key character developments and key choices and story and stuff like that, and I can appreciate the art for what it is and stuff like that. So yeah, wow, I am just in awe. I am, and I absolutely love this movie. And again, I would say that if you didn't want to start from the beginning of Studio Ghibli like I have, if you wanted, like, if somebody said to me right now, like, what would be the Ghibli movie that you'd recommend somebody to get into, this would be up there. I'll still admit, Nausicaa Valley of the Wind, it hasn't beaten it. For me, that is still top of the shelf, the best so far. And I would still recommend people to watch that one as well. But I'd probably also recommend people to watch this one, because this one can be enjoyed for everybody. Whereas like Grave of the Fireflies, that one's a bit difficult to recommend to anybody. Laputa, that one again is another one that you could recommend to adults and to children, but I'd say that one is probably more of a children's story, children's adventures. Whereas this is more of sort of like, you can take your kids to watch it and they'll enjoy it for the action, for what it is, but I feel like the adults would appreciate it as well for the themes and the complexities and all the stuff that's in it as well. So I'd say this is one where this is a good entry point for a lot of people to kind of really get a feeling for what Ghibli is and what they try to do. And yeah, it's just a beautiful, wonderful story. And talking about story, so I'm not going to break it down like I have done with other reviews recently. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to sort of talk about kind of old school it, really, like the way I used to. I'll just talk about certain things here and there. So for my sort of interpretation, this is a story of honor among pilots, a story of Porco Rosso, or Porco, or Marco. He has many different names. Everybody else calls him Porco, but Gina calls him Marco. And for this, I'll probably call him Porcos because everybody will recognize it. But this is a story about honor and this idea and of back in the day. So we're going to go very, very far back. We're going to go back to like when planes were first starting to go up into the sky and fly about. Pilots were considered celebrities, and that if you were an ace pilot, you were the bee's knees. You know, you were the top dollar, sort of like you were the guy. You were the pilot. And you had incredible, amazing pilots throughout history. A lot of male and female pilots who broke records and kind of made aviation what it is today, made it safe. And, you know, even if you go as far as like the people who flew the planes that, you know, were new designs that you didn't know if you went in the air, like this could kill me, like this design could be, you know, it could be if I turn too gently to the left or to the right with the rudder, I could just spear and just whip out because the air could catch me because again angles and stuff like that. Again, I'm not an aeronautical sort of engineer, so like I can't say things technically and that sort of thing, but what I'm trying to say is pioneers, that's what they were. They were pioneers, and there was honor amongst pilots. Like during the I think it was like during the First, Second World War, a lot of pilots, if you was in a dogfight, a lot of pilots, like once they took your engine out, you would never shoot a plane that was going down, or if it was already going down, you would leave it. Like you've shot it, it's going down, you stop now, it's done. Or if there was a pilot that managed to get out of his seat and was coming down like with parachute, you'd never shoot the pilot. It was a written rule of like, look, if he is evacuated, if he's escaped, that's it. It's done. All my job was to take down the plane. Done. And you'd never shoot a fellow pilot in the air. Again, there were moments like during like the sort of the First and Second World War, especially the First World War, you'd have biplanes, you'd have other, you'd have pilots like German pilots and Allied pilots. You know, that were dropping like they had these like they looked giant metal spikes. Really, you'd throw them, they'd throw bricks at each other and all different things they can throw at each other in like from cockpit to cockpit. But it was always honourable. You know, well, even though it doesn't sound honourable, like majority of the time, it was that idea and concept of pilots were honourable, and that they had a code, and they were like considered celebrities. And this movie really does sort of show that a lot, where like there's a moment at the end where they're having a fight, and Porco could take out what's his name now? Oh, not Chris. What's his name? Curtis. That's his name. I just remembered it. Curtis. He could have took out Curtis, like killed him and took down the plane, but he kept refusing to shoot Curtis. He just wanted to take the engine out and shoot him down, but he didn't want to kill the pilot. And again, it's this very honourable idea, and I love that. I love that idea and that sort of taking the history, but also this movie is like a celebration and showing the beauty of aviation in the 30s. I've been to a lot. I love planes. I really, really do. I've been to a lot of war museums. I've been to RAF Cosford here in the UK, which I highly recommend to go. They've got a lot of old planes there, a lot of new ones as well. I love warplanes. I'm like I said many times, my biggest fascination is World War I and World War II, like tanks and planes and stuff like that, and the evolution of weaponry and stuff and all that jazz. And this movie is kind of like a celebration of the beauty of aviation throughout time, but most importantly, aviation through the 1930s and seaplanes and how gorgeous they are. And honestly, there are so many scenes where you could, and I've said this before, but there are so many scenes where you could just pause and like take that one scene and frame it. And that would just be perfect art. Every scene is gorgeous and artful. And what I love about this story is that you have Marco, and it's this subtle undertones of like, he is a pig, but he's like, yeah, I'm a pig. You know, I am how can I explain it? Kind of like he's a womanizer. He is like, he doesn't care about anybody else. He's a pig. Again, it's very subtle tones. Again, if you were to call somebody a pig, you would say they're very sort of womanizer. They're an animal. They're dirty, filthy. They don't care about anybody but themselves, that sort of thing. So it's those subtle undertones, and he does play upon it as well. Even Porco himself is like, look, I'm a pig. I don't care. And when like he finds out that the Italian government are after him because he was a deserter, they were like, well, you know what they'll do to you. And he goes, it's all right, I'm a pig. And he's like, yeah, but you're right. You're a pig. The laws aren't the same, so they'll just kill you. They won't give you a trial if they catch you. And it's little things like that, just little sort of moments. And as sort of the story goes on, and he meets Piccolo, and he kind of starts to love and care for something that's other than himself, and you start to learn as to why he is the way he is, so why he's only for himself, and he doesn't really care much for really anybody else, and why he's cursed to be a pig. Basically, it's all very fascinating. I don't want to ruin it for anybody, but I do love this one scene where he's telling the little girl the story of how he sort of became a pig. And again, I don't want to go into full detail because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a beautiful scene. He's literally above the clouds, and his plane is flying just kind of like if the cloud was water, just on the top of the clouds gently. And he looks up and he looks around, and it's all quiet and he can't see anything. It's a beautiful scene. And then all of a sudden his best mate comes up in his plane, and he's shouting at him, and his mate's not answering. And he turns to his left, and there's another plane from a German plane comes up, and then another Allied plane, and then another German, then more Allied planes, and then more planes, and foreign fighters, and none of them are talking. And he's just watching as all these planes go up into heaven, really, into the sky. And they all follow in line to this one big sort of like the ARC, really. That's the best way I can explain. If you've watched Finding Nemo, you know what I mean. But it looks like a giant current in the sky. It's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's a wonderful representation. It's a very heartfelt moment when they're talking to each other. And after finish explaining, it's a fact of, I survived, but everybody else didn't. And you learn more about his character and the way he is. And yeah, it is it's a kid's movie, but I'd say all at the same stage, it's a very adult movie. Like I said, there's a lot of undertones of war and fascism, and this idea of like in terms of Porco Rosso, doing things for myself and not having to do anything for anybody else because I am different. Like, I'm no longer a human, I am a pig, so I don't care. I literally just do stuff because I get paid to do it. All I want to do is fly, and that's it. All I care about is myself and my plane. And all I want to do is fly. And it moves in that idea of being a pig and being sort of lowest of the low, not caring about anybody else and all that jazz. But it's done in such a way that it's fun. It's done in a comedic way. It's done in a fun way. There's tons of adventure. There are many moments in the story, especially when you get the other sort of rival gangs, the other sort of pirates. And they've all got different looking planes, and they're all different colours, and they're all quite silly and funny, and they all act the hard man, but they're all big cowards. None of them will want to fight Porco. They're all moaning, "Oh no, I've got engine problems. I can't do it." "No, you haven't got engine problems." And then one goes, "Well, no, I've got engine problems. You do it." And he goes, "Oh no, but you big wussies, come on!" And they're like, "No, you go." And it reminds me. And again, this is a deep cut for anybody. Like it's way before my time. I remember watching the reruns. But does anybody remember Catch the Pigeon? It was an offshoot of Wacky Racers. And basically you had Dick Dastardly and Muttley, and you had another, his crew, bands of crew really, and all the different types of biplanes and stuff like that, all different shapes and sizes and colours. And they would all moan at each other, and all they would try to do is to catch this pigeon. And I think it was a messenger pigeon, if I remember correctly. But they never kept to do it. They were the bad guys. They never was able to catch the pigeon. It was kind of like Tom and Jerry's. Like every time they would get close to capturing the pigeon would outsmart them. They'd crash, fall out the sky, that sort of thing. And it reminded me of Wacky Racers. There were many moments where they were arguing or just look and feel of their planes where I was just expecting to see Dick Dastardly turn up with Muttley somewhere. And I'm like, it's going to happen eventually, you know. And I love that. Like, it was so nostalgia for me. And I don't know if that was the intention, if Hayao Miyazaki has seen Catch the Pigeon, if he's a Wacky Racers fan, Dick Dastardly fan, I don't know. But it was just one of them scenes where I was just like, that just feels like Catch the Pigeon. And I haven't seen Catch the Pigeon since, God, I was a little bean watching Boomerang on the TV. So it's been a long, long time. But I just love the story. I do. Like I said, with this one, because a lot of the undertones and there's a lot to get into, and it's quite technical. It's one of those where, like, I don't really want to really get into it. It's one of those where I'd want people to discover it for themselves. So I don't want to spoil much of the story because there's a lot there to unpack, and there's a lot of twists and turns and a lot of really good story beats that are best seen and heard for yourself instead of me sort of ruining it here. But yeah, it's a very beautiful and complex story, but you don't notice the complexities unless you're looking for them, or that you notice them. Otherwise, it is just an adventure sort of story about a man trying to basically redeem his honor. That's the long and short of it, really, is the fact of he is a bounty hunter who gets thwarted by Curtis. And to kind of defend his honor, he gets his plane fixed again, and then he goes off to kind of reclaim his honor. But he also has as a stowaway Piccolo, who becomes his new engineer, and their relationship, he kind of changes and turns, and then sort of something happens, and he has to kind of not just fight for his honor, but fight for her as well. It's a very wonderful story, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Just like, go in, enjoy it, and let me know what you think on Twitter or whatever, or Discord or whatever else you have me on. Also, I want to mention Michael Keaton as Marco, or AKA Porco. He's absolutely incredible. He was definitely channeling Batman. And I'm not just saying it because he was Batman. Well, no, okay, technically, okay, all right, that's a lie. I am here, but he just, the way he does the voice for Porco, because Porco talks like he talks in the first person a lot, and not sort of not first person, sorry, talks in the third person, where you have scenes and you don't see him talk, you don't see, it's like inner monologue. That's the best way to explain it. He has these inner monologues, and they're delivered in such a way that you like, that's Batman. Again, I know Michael Keaton played Batman, I get it. But it's one of those where the dialogue is done in such a way where I'm like, this feels like Batman. This feels like a Batman story, at times. And again, I don't want to explain why, because again, I feel like it will ruin it. But there are times where I'm like, this feels like a Batman story. And it's not just not that it is, but it just feels like that, because I just couldn't not hear Batman in his voice, because the lines and the dialogue for Porco is very much akin to like Batman, sort of thing. Bruce Wayne, that's how it feels. It's like they have two alter egos, where like Marco is that who he is to Gina, that's who he is to his really close friends, but to everybody else he is Porco. He has two different personalities. During the night he is Marco, during the day he is Porco. When he's flying around being sort of the hero, the bounty hunter, the vigilante, he is Porco Rosso. During the night, when it's just him and these close friends, he is Marco. And again, I don't know if that was done intentionally, like there was intentionally chosen Michael Keaton for that. I don't know, but Michael Keaton does an absolutely incredible, terrific job here as Porco. And it just generally feels like Batman, and it didn't pull me out of it at all. If anything, it sucked me in more. It was like, you know what, this feels like Batman. They kind of have the similar sort of like story background, that sort of thing. So this was kind of like, okay, I'm just going to watch this as if I'm watching Batman and see where it goes. And fantastic. Again, Michael Keaton is incredible in anything and everything that he's in, to be honest. Like, he's never made a bad movie, in my opinion. Everything I've seen him in, whether it be live action or animation. He has been incredible, and he's always a standout. And I'll be honest with you, this is probably the first time not watching Batman where I've actually heard Michael Keaton's voice and I've gone, he just feels like Batman. He does. Like, again, you don't watch Beetlejuice and goes, oh, that's Batman. You go, well, no, that's Beetlejuice. That feels like Beetlejuice. Or you watch Jack Frost and you're like, oh, well, that's Jack Frost. That's not Batman. This one here, and again, even if you want if you want an animation sort of recommendation, when he was in Cars and he was playing Chick Hicks, again, that's Chick Hicks. That's not Batman. This is the only movie I've watched, again, obviously apart from Batman, where I'm like, that's Batman. That is Michael Keaton as Batman. He just has a way with words. He has a way with the dialogue. He has a way of delivering the lines as Porco Rosso, where I'm like, that's Batman. But again, it didn't pull me out. If anything, I'm like, I want to know more. Like, this is great. I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'm invested in emotionally and physically in this character because it feels like somebody that I love. And again, in my opinion, Michael Keaton is the best Batman. And again, I would die on that hill. And I think a lot of people would die on that hill with me. So at least I won't be on my own. But yeah, it never ruined it for me. It was one of those where I just loved it and it sucked me in. And I was just like, I need more. I need more. And we got loads more in this film. So yeah, Michael Keaton was a fantastic choice for Porco Rosso in this movie. As for the music, again, just extraordinary. I wanted to mention it here, as you expected with all Studio Ghibli films. Absolutely extraordinary. There were tones of Nausicaa. There were tones of Laputa. There were tones of, My Neighbor Totoro, Kiki's Delivery Service. Like they all share the tone. They all share that feeling of adventure. They share that feeling of exploration, of honor. Like, I can't explain what honor feels like, but it's when you feel honorable, and this music fills you with joy, fills you with honor, fills you with pride, fills you with that feeling of emotion of whatever's happening here is right. It is good. And you feel like you're ready for an adventure, like you're going on an adventure. Like everything just fits in so well. As you come to expect with Ghibli movies, everything just fits. The art, the story, the characters, the music, everything just fits into a nice, neat little box. And again, this is like 1992, right? Like if we look, right, I'm going to do this again because I haven't done this for a while. Actually, this is something I used to do when I was first covering these films. But I wanted to leave it for a bit because I wanted to kind of see. I wanted to leave it a good gap before we looked into it even more. So these are the sort of the 16 titles that came out in 1992, the same year as this movie, right? So you had Aladdin, this is Disney's Aladdin, mind the way, the Robin Williams version. You had Fern Gully, The Last Rainforest, Babe's Kids, Cool World, Tom and Jerry the movie, Tiny Toon Adventures, How I Spent My Vacation, Porco Rosso, Freddy as FR07, Blinky Bill, Dragon Ball Z. I can't even begin to pronounce that one. Dragon Ball Z Super Battle of the Three Super Saiyans. Die Amateur von Pico. No. Yeah. Well, they start getting into a lot of names that I can't pronounce. But basically, the only real highlights I can see here. Again, I've never seen Cool World, so I can't talk about that one. But it's Fern Gully, Last Rainforest, which is an incredible film. Very much underrated nowadays. Not by my generation or the generation before me, but very much by kids nowadays. I don't know. It's a film that is not really talked about nowadays, sadly, with kids. But fantastic movie. And Aladdin. So only two movies I would say was probably on the same level as Porco Rosso this year, and it just goes to show that Ghibli was always ahead of the game, was always a trendsetter. They never so far have made a bad movie or make a movie that I just haven't enjoyed. See, like Metacritic gave the movie an 83. Fern Gully got a 67, and Aladdin got an 86. Obviously, Aladdin, everybody loves Aladdin. But it's interesting to see what movies came out this decade and see what it was competing with. And considering that actually Porco Rosso didn't come out in the Western territories until around about 2005, I think, with the English dub. The only ones that really were coming out at that time was Aladdin and Ferngully. So we didn't get Porco Rosso until 2005, but by that stage, again, even though it was from 1992, I'm sure it was probably still up there being one of the best animated movies of that year. But yeah, so it's just interesting to see what movies came out then. Again, I haven't done that in a while. Where was I on my notes? There I am. So, yeah, overall thoughts is I absolutely love it. Absolutely love and enjoy this movie. They have done it again. They have knocked it out of the park, and I'm just in awe. I'm in one of them sort of feelings where I'm like, I'm still I'm looking out my window. It's a lovely sunny day right now, and I can see the clouds, but it's mostly all blue. And honestly, I could easily just imagine a seaplane just flying over right now, and I could visually, I can see the animation style of Ghibli, and as the plane flies over and Porco Rosso flying. Like generally, it's transported me to this world that is beautiful and gorgeous, and I love the ending. Again, I don't want to talk about it, but the ending leaves it open for you to decide of what happens next, and I love that because, like, don't worry, it's nice to know how stories ends. Of course, it does, but many movies nowadays, they have to tell you all is well, everything's good, everybody is fine, like X, Y, and Z, which is nice. Which again, it's fine. Like these characters that you love, like you like to know that had a happy ending, but sometimes it's also nice not to know. These characters that you love and enjoy, it's up to you, the viewer, to take what you've seen from the film and then make up your own opinion of, like, do you think this character deserves a happy ending? Do you think this character by the end of the movie deserves love or deserves redemption or died honorably or didn't die or whatever? Like, it's up to you, and I like that because I can then come from this movie, and this movie would be special to me because I have my thoughts and feelings on how it ends, and it'll be special to somebody else because they might have a different theory or different feeling or emotion of how it ends. And I feel like these choices to do these sort of things makes movies more rewatchable and makes you care about them more because you have a stake in the film, and your stake is your conclusion of how it ends and what happens next. And I love that. I do. It just gives you an extra bit of special sort of connection to this movie. So yeah, I definitely do recommend it to everybody to go out, give it a watch. I'm glad I finally finished this movie. I managed to watch it all now, and I can just see as to why it pulled me in and why it was the film that really got me interested. And that's why I say to anybody of, like, if you want to start anywhere with Ghibli, start with this one, because more than likely it will pull you in and not let you go, and then you have to keep watching more Ghibli movies because they're all just magical and wonderful and absolutely beautiful. So that is my overall thoughts. I've got a bit of trivia, but it's not many. Only 2 lots of trivia. So firstly, Hayao Miyazaki has stated that he prefers the French language cast, in particular Jean Reno as Porco Rosso, over the Japanese cast. It's kind of interesting he says that because as I was watching this, obviously I watched the English dub with Michael Keaton, but this movie is set in Italy, so all the characters are Italian. And I did sit here and think, well, what would the movie be like? How would it feel? Would it change if I watched the movie in Italian? So if I watched if the whole setting is Italian, if I watched all the characters speaking Italian as they would do naturally, because that is the time and the place of where the movie is set, what would it feel like? Would it change? So it was interesting when I was doing my research to find that Miyazaki actually prefers the French language version of this movie, which I'm going to have to try and find now on YouTube to listen to it to kind of see the differences. Again, he is the master. He is the god. He is the creator. So if he says it's good and he prefers that version, it must be. You know what I mean? And then my next bit of trivia, again, not many, like I've only got the two, is in the documentary The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness from 2013, Hayao Miyazaki called this film foolish. When asked why, he stated that it was foolish for him to make an adult movie for children. I know it's kind of contradictory to what I just said, but I kind of disagree that it was foolish. Maybe for the time period. Like when I say time period, I mean like the 90s, the early 90s. Maybe then, but I wouldn't say it was foolish. Of like, it's good to have. I think again, I've never made an animated movie, but I've watched loads of them. I think it's good to have a good balance of having something that adults can enjoy and kids can enjoy. Because at the end of the day, these movies, it'd be adults taking their kids or nephews or nieces to go watch these movies in the cinema, so you've got to have something to keep their interest. And that's why movies like Shrek and stuff like that, why they've done so well and why they sort of appeal to such a large demographic of young and old, because there's things in there for kids and there's things in there for adults. And I feel like with this movie, it has a good balance. Like I said, there are complexities. There are moments where if you really look hard enough, you can see sort of like best example, when Porco Rosso goes to Piccolo to get his plane fixed. He expects men to fix it and men to rebuild it. And it turns out that it's all women and that it's Piccolo's aunts, grandmas, aunties, cousins, it's all women fixing his plane. And it's very much the fact of, I don't like this, where are all the men? And like, the men have gone. And they said they've gone look for work, and you could say they've gone looking for work, or they've gone to join the war effort because the war's starting up in Italy. And again, as if we know our history, we know where Italy went with the war. But again, I'm not going there. The different episode, different topic, way different sort of podcast. But again, if you read into it and you know your history, then you know where the men have gone or where they're going to go. That's why there's women. Whenever you look at scenes, there's more women than actually men around in the backgrounds. And it's, if you look at the posters and if you take things into context, like you take these sort of adult historical things in, and if you know, then it's like, oh, okay, I see what's happening. I see what's going to happen. I see where it's starting to go. But if you're a kid, you won't notice it. You will hear it, but it won't register. So I don't feel like it's foolish. I feel like it's something. Again, there's an onion. It's a cake. It's a pie. You cut into it, and there's tons of layers. There is tons more to it than what meets the eye. To quote again Optimus Prime, there is more that meets the eye with this movie. So I don't feel like it's foolish to make an adult movie for children. And again, you could have easily made it purely for adults, and I still feel like it would have been incredible and impactful. You could have done it in sort of the veins of Grave of the Fireflies. Probably not as horrific, but you could have done it in that sort of vein. Because again, that's a movie that I would not recommend for kids to watch. Even though it's possibly, you could say, made for kids, I wouldn't say kids should watch that movie because it would scar them. But he could have done that. But instead, obviously, he decided to do a more sort of kid-friendly, but with adult tones. And I think that's quite clever. And it's pulled off so well here that it comes off as being really, really genius. And he is. Miyazaki, as I've come to watch his movies, I've noticed more and more that this bloke, this dude, is a genius with storytelling, with art, with being creative. Again, he's never made a movie where I've sat there and gone, this is terrible. Every movie I've watched of his, I have fallen in love. I have just been taken away. So I disagree with him there. I still think he is sort of a god. I still feel like he is the creator, like a genius. But I do disagree with him there. Like, I don't feel like it's foolish. Maybe in the time of like late 80s, early 90s, possibly. But nowadays, no, I feel like there's a lot of movies that are like this, and I feel like if people watch it today, it wouldn't be classed as foolish. It'd probably be classed as thought-provoking and stuff like that. But yeah, that's my sort of 2 pence on it. But that's all the trivia I have from today. The next movie I'm going to be watch is actually from 1993, which is Ocean Waves. It is the only movie to date that has not had an English dub. So it's the only Studio Ghibli movie that does not have an English dub. So if I'm going to watch this movie, I will have to watch it in the native tongue of Japanese. It is on Netflix. That's why we're watching it. Again, I have no issue with that. Again, my most favorite movie of all time is Amélie, and that is a French film with English subtitles, so I will be fine. But yeah, there's no English version of that movie, so I will watch it as it is. But this will be an interesting sort of investigation, really, because I have, apart from Grave of the Fireflies, where I rewatch parts of that film in the native Japanese, not the whole film, just parts of it on YouTube. This time, but I watched it in English first time round. This time, moving into this next movie, I'm going to watch it completely as it was meant to be, as it was meant to be watched and listened to in Japanese. So it'd be interesting to see how I feel about it. If it makes it better, if it makes it worse, if I got lost, if I got confused, it'll make a good episode, I hope. So yeah, next movie will be Ocean Waves from me, including Studio Ghibli. But I really hope you liked my review of Porco Rosso. Sorry if I'm a bit here, there, and everywhere. It's one of those where like you watch a movie so good and you just like, I've got so much to say, but I don't know where to start. My brain is confuzzled at the moment. But I hope I was able to convey as best as possible my thoughts and feelings on this movie, and that I didn't get as lost or didn't lose anybody as I think I might have done. But yeah, so that is all she wrote. That's what I've really got to say. Thank you very much for sort of listening to this episode. Again, 3 things you can do for me before we wrap things up. Make sure that you follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify on your mobile phone, don't forget to leave a star rating. So if you can do all those things, I'll be eternally grateful. I've been your host, Luke the Human. You've been listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast, and I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.